got a tiger on the front. What more could you want? I put the headphones on and I just smile as I walk down the street. People must think I'm a right weirdo. Good job I only need my glasses for far away, because I would be reading like that. Oh, why do they do that? I think that might be a pun on Bonnie and Clyde. Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Kizzy and today I'm going to be doing possibly the biggest book haul that I've had on my channel. I can't remember what the biggest book haul is, but there is 50 plus books here, which is quite a lot, especially since I have been in a reading slump. I did buy a lot of books because I wanted to try and find something different to read that would like kind of spark my reading, wanting to read moment, feeling, mood again. It took me a while to find that book. Not all of these books as well I bought, so I've split this haul into a couple of groups. I've got books that I have bought, books that I have been given by friends, books that were gifted to me but they are brand new, so they were like sent to me or given to me by my mum basically. And then the last category I have is books that I've been given by publishers or that were sent to the shop that I work in by publishers and that I have now taken as my own. So yes, that is the categories that we've got today. I will start with the books that I have bought myself. The biggest pile. I spent a lot of money on books recently. But then this is my whole year's worth of books. I've accumulated this over the entire year, so I feel like it's not quite so bad. And I'm not planning on buying very many more. So the first one I've got, this is not an order. I cannot remember the order that I bought these books in. So they're not in any order. But the first book I've got is one that I bought mainly because of the cover, because look at it. It is gorgeous. It's got a ginger cat on it. I like it. I like this a lot. It's pink as well, which matches me lovely. It also sounds like a cool concept. So the main character is autistic and she's not very used to kind of interacting in social situations. And it's kind of just how she views the world and the different ways she kind of looks at things and interprets things. And she goes to a party, she leaves but decides to actually come back. And I think it's just her kind of like assessing and then observing this party. So it sounds really cool and I did start it. I maybe got like 20 pages in and then put it down and then just didn't come back to it. But I would really like to get back to this because it does sound really cool and a bit different to what I normally read. Then the next book I have is another one that I started and did not finish. And I think I got quite far through this one. Again, I should start using bookmarks because I don't use bookmarks, and then when I stop reading them and don't come back, I never remember the page I'm on. But I'm pretty sure I got quite far through this one. It's another short one. It's by Laurent Binet. My French was terrible there. It's called Civilization. So we've got multiple histories. We've got Vikings, we've got Christopher Columbus, all kind of retold differently if they had succeeded in their missions or failed in their missions, vice versa than what actually happened. I feel like you'd get more of this if you were a history buff. I was hoping that I kind of would understand it because especially the Viking aspect, I did study it. Apparently I don't remember very much of it because I was not really sure about a lot of it. So I feel like, yeah, if you know history, you'll get more out of this than if you don't. It has like kind of like an assumption that you know the characters already or the people, the names. So I do want to reread this again, but reread the start of it at least and carry on. But I was on holiday at the time, so I didn't have access to much internet, which I feel like I would need to. I'll need to like Google a lot of this as I go along to kind of like see where they've diverged from the original history, etc., and kind of like be able to understand it a little bit better and get more from it as a book. But I'm interested in the concept. The next book I bought, I'm not gonna lie, it was because of the sprayed edges, but it's also been nominated actually for quite a lot of crime awards, or at least one crime award. Her first book, Blood and Sugar, is very popular. This is Daughters of Night by Laura Shepherd Robinson. Look at these edges, they are so gorgeous. And this is a crime, like a historical crime novel. Don't know much more about it, but I was in the mood for a historical crime novel, so I bought it and then did not read it. So apparently I was not that much in a mood for it. But it's gorgeous and I do want to read it, and I kind of want to read a little bit more crime and historical fiction. So actually there's quite a lot of historical fiction in here. There's not really. There's more than normal for someone that tends to only read fantasy. I would like to read this. Like, I get the urge to read this quite regularly. I just need to actually now read it. So the next book I bought because I read another book that is coming up in the haul, and I wanted to kind of read something similar, and when I googled things that were similar, this book came up by quite a few different like blogs and videos. Is it similar? I don't know because I started it and did not finish. I'm about 100 pages in, I know that. Basically I was 100 pages in, then I went on holiday and I wanted to start a fresh new book on holiday and then did not come back to this. So this book follows two characters. One is kind of semi-autobiographical about Ruth Ozeki. It's about a woman who is kind of lonely, she's isolated, she met someone, fell in love and decided to move to this island that he loved and I think lived on at the time, but it's not at all kind of what she would normally do. She like is a city person, she's a journalist, a writer, she likes being in the buzz and just in the movement of a city, and she's feeling very uninspired and kind of just not very happy with her situation. And then one day she is walking along the beach near her house and she finds this Hello Kitty lunchbox, opens it up and discovers this diary of a young girl. This diary is a girl from called Neo from Japan, and she's got a very kind of different approach to life, or kind of like a unique perspective she's very young and kind of flippant, but also talks about really heavy and serious stuff. I think where it's going to go is that through reading this diary found in this lunchbox, our main character's kind of going to have to like reassess her life and kind of like, I don't know, discover something and find a link, because I don't know. But I think that's what it's going to go. So their lives are kind of like intertwined, but not physically intertwined, but just kind of like how they are in the situation that they are in life and that kind of thing. So it does sound really good, and her recent book is very popular. I think it won a Women's Booker Prize. So I am excited to read this. I like having this book owned in my kind of library of books. So the next book I bought because a follow-through fiction read it and loved it. I think quite a while ago now, actually. I saw it one day on the shelf and I wanted to buy a book, so I did. And that is Master of Sorrows by Justin Call. This, I think, is about a group of magicians. So magic is actually the enemy. Interesting, I thought it was the other way around. So I'm intrigued to pick this up. It's very floppy, look at that. How fun. But I kind of always forget that I bought this. So I need to remember that I bought this and read it. The next book I think I bought because it was one of my most anticipated books of the year. I did that in a video a while ago now. Have I read it? No. Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. I kind of wish I waited and bought this in paperback. I'm trying to do that with more books these days instead of buying hardbacks, but I didn't, clearly, and I can't remember what it's about. But I just saw it on the shelf and was like, I need it. It's got witchcraft in it, magic. I haven't heard or seen many people actually reading it, so I have no idea if it's good or not. I really hope it is. I've had a few disappointing reads this year. Hopefully it's good. The next book I bought, again, is because of the cover. I'm a sucker for a cover buy, but also the author does come very highly recommended by a work colleague of mine. But this is Mischief Acts by Zoe Gilbert. She also wrote Folk. So it follows a shapeshifter, I believe, that is, I don't know, on the run for something, and he goes through all the like different times in periods and stuff like that. But it is apparently a British folklore as you've never seen it before. Dangerous, sexy, troubling, daring, savage and exhilarating race through time and space, weaving together the ancient and the contemporary. Which sounds right up my street. That's such cool like title pages. How very, very, very cool. So yeah, actually I'm very excited to read this one. I'm more excited now that I've talked about it. So the next one I've got is a sequel to a book that I read in a reading vlog, but that is a book that I was very confused by but equally intrigued at the ending and what was happening. I think I probably need to reread it and I'll maybe understand it a little bit better. There was a lot going on, maybe I was just in a bit of a brain fog, but this is The Liar's Knot, which is the sequel to The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which is a name for two authors that I cannot remember right now. But The Mask of Mirrors was a beautiful cover, and this is also like really cool. I love this cover. But I remember something at the end of that book happening and I was like, what the heck? Do I remember what it is? No, not at all. So I am going to have to reread it. But it is a really cool fantasy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot happening. I can't tell you much more about it because I can't remember. The next I got was, I'm not going to lie, also because of the cover. But also it does sound really cool. And right up my street. It's about witchy covens. And again, I think Frolic Through Fiction read it and rated it. So it added to the pile, and that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven. Look at this book. It's so cool. They're the two brightest covers ever that I've seen on a book, and it is awesome. Like, even the end pages are bright yellow. But this is about a witch's court that protect the crown and country from magical forces and otherworldly evil. Their greater enemy will come from within, where the whisperings of a prophecy that will bring the coven to its knees. The four best friends are about to be caught at the centre. Helena, Neve, Leonie and Ellie, or Elle, probably, actually more likely to be Elle, need to stop the prophecy before it's too late. Will the differences that have seen them grow apart since childhood be too great to overcome? So I'm excited to read this. I feel like this will be fun and cool, and it sounds cool. The next book I bought is one I'm very excited for, but I can't read it yet because I still haven't read Rhythm of War, but that is Brandon Sanderson's Dawnshard, which is a short story from the Stormlight Archive. I'm rereading The Way of Kings currently on audiobook. I love the audiobook so much. Literally, I put the headphones on and I just smile as I walk down the street. People must think I'm a right weirdo, but I just love it so much, and Brandon Sanderson is just absolutely the greatest person and writer and just being in the whole planet. I love him so much. So I'm very excited to get to this. Stormlight Archive is my all-time favourite fantasy series ever, so I need to get to this like ASAP. And it's so pretty as well. Next we have another book which I talked about in my last video, so I won't talk about it too much here, but that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. And this is a China or alternate history Chinese inspired fantasy where we follow a main character who takes on her brother's destiny to become the greatest and goes for it, basically. She's got a lot of gumption and it's very good, and we have a female-female romance, and I'm excited to see the next one, or read the next one. Next, we have a book that I bought because the author was coming to the shop, and then I didn't actually end up going to the event, so I don't know why I bought it. And that is Ben Aronovich. I can never say that. Ben Aronovich, The Rivers of London, which is obviously a very, very popular book. I've since heard that it can be a little bit outdated on the old viewpoints in here, but I mean, I think it was written quite a while ago now. 2011. So we'll see. It's also, it's got ghosts in it, and I don't really tend to like ghosts, so I did read the first chapter and it was like ghosts, and I was like, yeah, put it back down. But I should give it a chance, so I am going to give it a chance because a lot of people love this series. So there's a lot of books in this series as well. I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of commitment yet, but we'll see. The next two books that I bought, I also talked about in my last video, so I will not go on to them a lot. But that is the next two books in the Poppy War series. We've got the Burning God and the Dragon Republic. I think that's the other way around. That's the second one. That's the third one. And it is just another one of my all-time favourite series I've read. It's incredible, very, very hard-hitting and gruesome, and got a lot of... Check out the trigger warnings before you dive into this one and see if it's right for you. But it is incredible, and if that's okay with you, then I would highly recommend it. And she is an absolute lovely human being. She's just great. The next book I bought, and I also talked about in my last video, so again, not going to talk about it much, but it's The Mad Women's Ball by Victoria Mass. This is a French book originally. It's translated into English, based on the true kind of story of Dr. Charcot. Quite an interesting read, and definitely pick it up if you're interested. The next book I have is one of the most beautiful books in the world, and that is Babel, or Babel, depending on how you want to say it, by Eric Kwang. And it's just, I'm so excited to read this. It's all about translation. I got it signed as well. Speaking two different languages, living in a country where your native language is not the primary language spoken, what that does, how it kind of like makes you feel, and the impact that has on you as a person. And it's just a very light fantasy, I believe, that I think is meant to be incredible. A lot of people have raved about it, and I'm very excited to get into it very soon. Next book I have is because it was likened to one of my favourite books, which is The City of Brass. It's kind of a similar, I think, Persian-inspired fantasy. I think so. Again, I've read 50 pages of this, but have not continued. But this is The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. And look at those edges, like it's bright orange. But I actually enjoyed this. Like, it seems like just like an easy to read fantasy that you'll probably get through quite quickly. So I will get back to this, I think quite soon actually, and just finish it off since I've already started it. The next book I have is another one I bought because I was on that kind of literary fiction bandwagon, and it's by the same author of the book that I really loved that got me back into reading. I did not read it, but I was very excited for it because the cover is gorgeous. And that is You Have a Friend in 10A. But it's a collection of short stories, which I'm not entirely... I mean, I can take or leave short stories. They're not my favourite thing in the world to get into. I'm a fantasy reader, so I like big, chunky fantasy books and series that you can really get into and like fall in love with the characters and really grow with them. Short stories, you can't get that from them. You just can't physically. It's just not enough time. But I did really like Maggie Shipstead, and I think these will really be kind of like interesting people to read about and observe. So that's my receipt. Yeah, I'm just excited to get to this, and it's got a tiger on the front. What more could you want? I don't know. So yes, very excited about this one, and it's short stories. I might need to read that to kind of catch up on my Goodreads goal. Then I have the Atlas 6, which is one that I feel like was really pushed by social media and bookshops and everything like that. But then I've since heard not so good things about it. I got the Warstones edition, so it is like quite pretty. She was originally a self-published book that got picked up by a publisher, and there's a big like push behind it. They've already released, like, as soon as this was published, they released the announcement for the second book, which is not for like another year. I feel like I will read it. I don't know if I'll like it though. I am hesitant to place judgment. I don't want to judge it before I go in. I'm going in with like average expectations now. And then the next book is one that I'm super excited for. This is one that I'm really excited for. My mum loves this author, and she has tried to get me to read the books by her before. I haven't. I'm now more interested in reading them than I was perhaps at the time, because I've read more like historical kind of like literary fiction, and now I would like to read more in that genre. She wrote Hamnet, and her most recent book is The Marriage Portrait, and look at this cover. It is stunning. It is the most beautiful book I've seen in a very long time. But this is a historical fiction book set in Florence, I want to say. Yes, Florence. Alternate history, again, like it's not based on, I think, real people. It's got real names and real characters, but they're not actually related how they are in real life, because when I started doing a bit of Googling, it was totally not what the right history was. Do not read this as if it was factual, which apparently a lot of people do. I'm very excited to get to this one. So we're getting to the end of the first section, and we have another one that was on my most anticipated books of the year, and it is In a Garden Burning Gold by Rory Power. She also wrote Wilder, something like that, which is a YA book. I think this is also probably a YA book. Fantasy though. I just picked it up because I knew it was on my most anticipated, and I have not read it, but it's got a cool cover as well. The penultimate book that I bought is one because I want to read more non-fiction. I also like travel, or I'm trying to like kind of read more in that genre, and this came highly recommended by a lot of travel writing people. Again, I started it and I did not finish it, mainly because, I'm not gonna lie, the narrator annoyed me a little bit, so I haven't got very far. But that is Around the World in 80 Trains. I really like the concept, but this is about sitting on a train. Like, it's not about it's not really about the places she visits. It's about the journeys and the people that she meets on the trains, which can be quite interesting, but more than not, I was more interested in reading about the places that she was visiting rather than the actual train journey themselves. I've only like 50 or so pages in, so that could change, because it seems like she didn't really enjoy the first few places that she went to, but we'll see if it gets any better. I will give it a go. I'd give it another go. So that's the plan. And the last book that I have here to show you, the ones that I've bought, is absolutely freaking gorgeous. I've been eyeing these editions up for forever. There's also the Arabian Nights in this edition, and I really, really want to buy this book. Maybe for Christmas I'll treat myself. But this is gorgeous. It is the annotated book of the Brothers Grimm. Do I own the Brothers Grimm? You know, I don't actually think I do. I think I've adopted my mum's copy of the Brothers Grimm, unbeknown to her. So I will now give that back, because I now have this bad boy, and it is gorgeous. It is so pretty. It's got full on pictures inside. So we've got little kind of black and white drawings inside, and then we've also got like full on big boy pictures like this. I mean, it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And I love fairy tales, and I do want to read more. Like I've read a lot of the original ones, but they've all been like on PDF versions online when I was doing research for like essays and stuff. But in uni, but there's just, it's just absolutely stunning. Like, this is the book that you will have for the rest of your life. Like, you will never give this up. It's just so lovely, so gorgeous. Like, I want some of these prints, actually. Absolutely stunning. So yes, I'm so pleased to have this in my possession, and it now sits at the top of my shelf in all its pride and glory, so everyone can see how gorgeous it is. Okay, so moving on to the books that I've got second hand. So this is by people either like gifting me them, or they were getting rid of them, so they gave them to me. The first one I have it's quite floppy, so it's either the American edition or it was a proof, or maybe it's a self-published book. I don't know. But it is the Stone in the Skull by Elizabeth Bear. Honestly, don't know much about it. It's just got a dragon on the cover, and I was sold. So there we go. The next one I have is one that's also by her favourite author, but she prefers the other series by him, so she was just getting rid of these because she didn't need it. And that is the Red Sister, Grey Sister. Is it a duology, or is this just the first two books? But this is by Mark Lawrence. He is another great fantasy writer. A world and a cast of characters that will sink their claws deep in you, by SFX, that quote. So Prince of Thorns is his other series that is like Deb's favourite series, but this sounds good, so I took them because why not? And then I have a nice little pile of books, which is the next 4 books in the Wheel of Time trilogy. It's a trilogy. It's not a trilogy. It's a fucking long series. They've changed the covers, not drastically. I don't think it would make that much of a difference if I changed the covers, but I'd already bought the first one in these editions, and Debs was getting rid of these. I think she originally got them secondhand as well, so they've seen some love in their time, and hopefully I will love them too. I don't know. I started the first book, I haven't finished it, but as she was getting rid of them in these editions, and I would like to try and find the rest of the series in these editions so they all match, I took them on. So we have book 2, which is The Great Hunt, book 3, which is The Dragon Reborn, book 4, which is The Shadow Rising, and then the 5th book is The Fires of Heaven. There's, I think, quite a few more that I need to find in these editions, hunting in some secondhand shops potentially, but hopefully I will be able to do that. Especially because the last couple books in that series are co-written or like kind of written by Brandon Sanderson, because sadly Robert Jordan passed away, but Brandon Sanderson like kept on his story and wrote the final couple of books in that series. And I would like to read most of what Brandon Sanderson wrote. Not all of them, not gonna lie. There's a few that just do not interest me. These I want to read. The last book I have that was gifted to me, or like I think I might have to return it actually. I don't know if it was a permanent gift, but I still have it with me. It's from my mum. She thinks I really like it. It was a memoir, I believe, by Terry White. It's Coming Undone, a memoir. She just said it was really interesting and that I would like it. So hopefully that is true. Now we have books that have been gifted to me, but they're like basically brand new books. But the first one I have is The Book of Nights by Holly Black. This is the Waterstones edition. It's got these sprayed edges on them. I'm not a big Holly Black fan. I've only read one of her books, so I can't really say. I feel like that's a bit harsh to judge on just one. But this is her first adult fantasy, so I was intrigued to get to it. It's very short, so I feel like I can read it quite... Oh, the writing is small though. Good job I only need my glasses for far away, because I would be reading like that. It's only like 300 pages, so I should read it quite quickly. Her first adult fantasy, I was intrigued, but not enough to buy it. So then when someone had like multiple copies and they were getting rid of this one, they just gave it to me, which is very kind of them. So I have this one now. The next couple books I have been sent by someone. I swapped a couple proofs for them. And the first one is Malice by John Gwynne. This, I feel like it's kind of like a I don't know, like modern classic fantasy, or it's one that lots of people have read. It's like a standard to have on your fantasy shelf. I don't really know what it's about, but it sounds cool. I don't know what it's about, so I have no idea if it sounds cool. But I have another book by John Gwynne, his like more recent series, The Shadow of Gods, which I have not read either, but hopefully I will get to that one and enjoy it. I feel like I will enjoy it. I feel like he's the kind of person I would like. The next one I have is the second book in a series, which again I have not read, but it is on my imminent TBR. That is The Republic of Thieves, which is the second book in the Lives of Locke Lamore, which sounds right up my street. Like, I feel like I'm really gonna like it. It's about a bunch of like a found family, fantasy, kind of dark, grim thing. I think I would just like it, with a bit of humour in there as well, is what I think I've heard about it. And this is the second one in the series, so obviously then I can just like read it first. I hope it's the second book. If it's the third book, then I'll just buy the second book. And then the next one is another second book in a series. Oh, why do they do that? It's got a sticker on it, but it's a sticker in the book, so I can't take the sticker off. I hate when they do that. But yes, this is the second book in the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy. I read The Bear and the Nightingale ages ago. It wasn't my favourite read. I didn't dislike it, didn't love it. I feel like I want to give it another go, maybe reread it and love it more. I still would like to continue on the series, so I have The Girl in the Tower as well, which is like, it's kind of like fairy tale-y kind of vibe, so it might be good for winter. And then the last book I have is one that was gifted to me by my dearest mother, and I'm actually really excited to read it because, again, I think it's like a modern classic. You would class it as think it's a modern classic. So this is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Terrible pronunciation again. But you probably know what this is about. I actually don't. But again, I'm just intrigued. My mum loves this book. It's a classic. Everyone buys this, basically, or has it on the shelf, or knows someone that's read it. It's one on my to be read very soon kind of book pile. I think I was meant to read this on holiday. Mum chose this. We chose a book each for each other to read on holiday. I didn't read it though, but it is to be read very soon. So, on to the final category of books, things that I've been either sent by the publisher or the shop has been sent by the publisher and I've schnaffled them. So, the first book I have with me here, this is The Matrix by Lauren Groff. She is a French writer, so this is a translation. I'm 80 pages into this one and I have yet to continue it. I do want to finish it. I just wasn't in the mood to read it at the time. It's about a girl who's born in the royal court, but she's sent away because she's, I think, a bastard child, and she goes to an abbey. She got a lot of gumption and a lot of drive. Marie de France, she's obviously inspired by Marie de France, who was a poet. We don't know much more about her apart from that she was French and called Marie, potentially. That's all we can gain from her poetry. We did a little bit of it at uni, which is kind of why I was intrigued by her, but she is apparently, in this book anyway, obviously it's very much a work of fiction, but she was born from a long line of female warriors and crusaders, and cast out from the royal court, Marie de France is sent to Angleterre to become the prioress of an abbey. Marie wields her strength teaching sword fighting and dagger work. She sets a bold new course for the nuns she leads, bringing herself and her sisters into richness and power. So it does sound really good, and like a lot of people loved it and raved about it, and it was really interesting, and I do want to read it. I promise you I do, and I will finish it at some point, hopefully soon. Next is the one that I talked about in my last video, so I'm not going to talk about it a lot, but I loved it. It was The Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. I won't go into it, but it's such a good observation and kind of story of this girl's life, and I just really enjoyed it, and being with her and finding out about her life and the struggles and the downfalls and the upsides and everything, and just it was a very interesting book. The next book I have is The House of Sorrowing Stars by Beth Cartwright. I requested this book, I believe. Legendary, there you go, The Night Circus inspired, a beautiful fairy tale of a book with the most delicious prose. That will be why I requested it, because it had that probably. So I think it's kind of meant to be, or have the feel of like a modern fairy tale kind of idea. It's enchanting and atmospheric. Sounds interesting. Next book I have, again, I talked about in the last video, so I won't talk about it much, but this is Noura and the Immortal Palace by M.T. Khan, about a girl who gets kind of trapped or falls into this djinn universe, and she must go through all these trials and tribulations to save her friend from the tricksy djinn, and it is a 9 to 12 children's fiction book. The next one I have is another kind of fantasy historical fiction book. I did not realise it was this hefty when I requested it. It's huge. It's going to be an investment to read this. Actually, it's only 650 pages, which is not that long. If you're a fantasy reader, it's not that long. But it just sounds very cool, and it was up my street at the time I requested it, and still is, to be fair. I am intrigued to read this. I am just slightly intimidated by the size of it. The next book I got is The Wolf and the Woodsman. This is another kind of like fairy tale, fantasy kind of vibey book, which is just, I like those books, so that's why you have a lot of them in this haul. Again, I think it was a frolic through fiction that I saw reading this, loving it, and that's why I requested it and I got it, and it just sounds good. The next I have a proof of the book. I think it's out now. So this is the second book in the Wolf Den trilogy, so I really enjoyed that book. I would like to read the next book in the series. It's about a woman in Pompeii who is being unfortunately kind of like captured and sold as a slave to this brothel, and she must kind of use the tools that she has and the means that she has to get ahead in life. Basically that means using the men that use her. It left on such a cliffhanger in the last book that I need to read the second book. I just haven't got around to it yet, but it was really good. It was a really good book, and I would really recommend it if you like historical fiction and that kind of era of Pompeii and like ancient times. It's good. It's a good book, good read. The next book is one that I am really excited to actually read, and it's our non-fiction book of the month this month for Waterstones, but it is Stanley Tucci's Taste, his kind of memoir through food. It's got, I think, has a couple of recipes in it, but it's just talking about his life and how food has impacted it. It's got like dialogue, and I think it's just a fun read, and a lot of people have loved it, and he's funny, and I'm excited to read about it. The next couple books I picked up just because I work in the children's fiction department now, and I felt like I didn't know enough about it, so I picked these up just randomly off the shelf. But is The Midnighters by Hannah Took and The Riddle of the Sea by Joan Kramer. These are 9 to 12 fiction books. Don't know much about them. I just love the covers. You can't see the cover of that one, it's a proof, but I love the covers of them, and they sound like little fun kids books to read, so that's why I picked them up. Then we have another book that is a crime book. I want to read more crime, so I did pick this one up. It did sound interesting. I didn't read it in time for when I was meant to read it for work, but I will hopefully maybe read it at some point. But that is The Light Seekers. It's based, I believe, on a true story about these students who were killed in a Nigerian university, and we know who killed them, but we don't know why they were killed or why this gang decided to kill them, and it's kind of more of a retrospective detective thing where the detective has to find out the reason why for it to stand up in court rather than finding out who it is, if that makes sense. So that's like I feel like that's an interesting way to do a crime novel, and I'm interested to see how they keep the suspense up, seeing as you know who did it. So the next book I have is one that I read in a reading vlog last summer. It was in a lockdown, but I really enjoyed it, so I requested the second one, and they actually sent it to me, so that's very exciting. But that is The Merciless Ones by Namina Forna. I was pretty sure I thought this was going to be a standalone. Maybe I got my information completely wrong. Well, I definitely did, because it's not a standalone. I've got the second book in my hand. But I'm excited to see how it goes. Maybe it was a duology and I did get it wrong. I can't remember now. This, I think, is like it was just a good YA fantasy that I haven't read in a long time. It's easy to read, good characters, fun characters to like watch, and the storyline and mythology and kind of magic system around it was interesting enough that I was wanting to read the second one when I finished. So here we are with the second one in my hand. The next one I have is another non-fiction one, and it sounds incredibly interesting, and it is The Devil You Know, a forensic kind of psychiatric insight into multiple characters. Not characters, they're real people. So you have multiple people that are in there from like for multiple different reasons. So you've got serial killers, arsonists, stalkers, and other people usually named monsters. However, she's kind of like delving into their mindset and whether or not we should be labeling them this. But it sounds so cool, and it's been so popular in the shop that I feel like it must be a good read, because it's like people have recommended it multiple times to multiple people, and you can read them like short stories because they're all about, each chapter's about a different person. So yeah, I'm excited to actually dive into that one, and I might start reading like a chapter here and there. So the next two I was sent by the publisher again, which is very exciting, and that is Never the Wind and The Book of Hidden Things. I think they, even though they say they were just published, I'm wondering if maybe it was self-published and they've just been picked up by a publisher, because they both came out at the same time, which is a little bit strange. I have no idea. I probably should have done my research on that though. But again, these kind of sound a little bit folklory, fantasy inspired, and the covers are lovely. So very excited to have these. And we have the final book. The last book I have is another proof. This comes out in August and it's September, so this is already out. But it is about rebel pirates, women pirates, rebels, Bonnie and Reed. I think that might be a pun on Bonnie and Clyde, but I don't know. So it's just about pirate women's, which I don't know why. I just like the idea of pirate women's. I've got quite a few books that I've picked up about that. I have not read them, I don't think, actually, but I have a few. So yes, I have this. I'm very excited, actually, to read this one. And there we have it. That was a really long video. 50 plus books. I haven't counted them. 51 books, just over 50. That's a lot of books. I hope you enjoyed this video. If there was anything in here that I haven't read that you think I should prioritize, do let me know down in the comments below. And I hope you had a good day, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Juno Dawson, she's a YA writer, isn't she? I think she's a YA writer. This might be then her first adult one, because I don't remember seeing her in adult fiction before. Is this YA? No, I don't think so. Let me find the genre. No, this is fiction, sci-fi, and fantasy. But Juno Dawson, I swear, is a YA writer. Okay. So maybe this is her first adult book. Wonderland, was that? No, that's teen. Yes. So I'm excited. I'm excited to read this. I feel like this will be fun and cool, and it sounds cool.